Welcome, welcome, come one, come all. Watch the amazing Grumpy Lobster tiptoe through the minefield known as misogyny in gaming. Alright, here we go. Be careful now. I didn't want to do it. I would have gladly sat in the front row and watched as the internet factions fought over what's really a non-issue, but damn it, I just can't take it anymore. Now, I'm a gamer, I'm a nerd, and I'm a male. I'm a consumer of visual medias, and I'm an informed individual. And despite the common opinion of the uninformed, I have been successfully playing video games for the better part of 15 years and have not murdered or raped anyone. So, what's the problem? Well, according to a large portion of the internet, I am a horrible person. Regardless of what I do in real life, the money I donate, or the time I spend, I am a horrible person because I don't think video games cause a rise in violence, and I don't think video games cause a rise in misogyny. Okay, go nuts, tear me apart in the comments, downvote my video like a Westboro Baptist Church parody. I'm an adult, I can handle it. But in reality, what will that change? Seriously, I don't care if you hate me, just so long as I can get my point across. So, let's look at video games as a whole. There have been thousands made in the last few years. So let's look at a statistically average protagonist. A man with unattainable physique and no brain to speak of. He mindlessly blunders from chest-high wall to chest-high wall, shooting other mindless men for some reason. Most often it's patriotism or revenge or to rescue a loved one, but it really doesn't matter. So why am I not infuriated that men are being portrayed in such a negative light? Well, because unlike most of the critics, I actually play the games. And in doing so, I'm able to see why the characters are stupid. To make games immersive, the developers have to strip away almost all of the defining characteristics of a character so the players can relate. It's the same with romance novels. Almost no protagonist development and detailed descriptions of the other characters. This is to create motivation through relation for the players to complete the game. So, let's look at some good motivations. For this, we can look directly at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All human motivations are simply to achieve a higher standing on the hierarchy, and most plots rely on the lowering or attempted lowering of the protagonist, thus creating conflict. The most obvious motivations are physical: food, water, shelter, sleep, those things. Because of their almost primal implications, these are quite often used in horror games, where your motivation is to simply survive. However, due to their limited range and simplicity, these motivations don't allow much plot development and tend to render a story simplistic. Moving up one rung, we come to safety. Obviously, this includes physical harm, but it also includes the security of happiness and maintaining sanity. Now, all the videos I've watched suggest the reason female characters are often the ones being saved is for the male playing the game to feel superior. I believe the most common term is male power fantasy. But speaking as a male, this is completely ridiculous. The motivation behind a so-called male power fantasy fits in the pyramid under esteem. Now, hold on. You may be thinking, wouldn't love belonging be a better fit? And to answer that question, I must ask you a question. If the reason our protagonist is risking their life to save another person is purely based on sexual power gratification, their motivation would have nothing to do with love or belonging. It would be based on pride and ownership, which fits into esteem, not love. So, back to why our protagonist is saving someone. If it's simply based on male sexual fantasy, why does it have to be this one person? Wouldn't it be easier to move on? Or is it something more? Could it be that instead of only wanting sex, of which they could likely get from any number of not kidnapped people, or is it deeper than that? I don't even think it falls into the love category most of the time. In most games, the loss of a loved one causes the sanity of the main character to break down, violating even their safety. They need to save their partner. Now, for obvious reasons, the Mario games are often used to illustrate this point. How could those sexist game developers lock up the princess just so her boyfriend has to save her and express his dominance? Now, the fact that this game is for children and purely fictitious aside, if Mario only wanted Peach for sex, why does he risk his life over and over to save hers? Also, you need to consider this game was created to be played by children. And as children don't understand the complexities of love, the developers had to fall back on one of the few things kids recognize. In the stories, the knight saves the princess from the dragon. Now, I'll admit that's a little fucked up by today's standards of political correctness, but you have to consider these stories were written a very, very long time ago and haven't been updated. The fact that seemingly educated people are attacking games for children, like Mario for being sexist, is just, well, sad, really. Now, I am all for true equality, and I get how sexualization of appearance in female characters is perhaps a bit excessive, but compared to the number of jacked male half-wits, it's hardly a drop in the bucket. These games are created for a mainly male audience, and therefore the designers use motivations that resonate with men. Saving a loved one from an unknown evil or ruthless antagonist is courageous, a characteristic that's been forced into the male psyche for as long as recorded data has existed. Look at the Gilgamesh epic. The oldest known story is about an incredibly attractive, impossibly strong warrior king fighting unspeakable evils. How fair is that? Sincerely, I wish there were more female gamers, and the fact that the few that actually exist are treated as a novelty is really sad. If the gamer demographic was able to write itself, 50-50 men and women, then developers would have incentives to create deeper character motivations and characters that relate to both sexes. But at the moment, nothing is changing because there is simply too much needless bickering. Feminists overanalyzing and twisting a medium that was designed as an interactive experience to sell their product, while traditional gamers lash out in defense of their passion. Individuals profiting off misinforming the public on how these games are brainwashing our children into little murdering rapists, instead of taking a stance and making a game to bridge the gap between the genders. If you really want to make a difference, be the change you want to see. There are already far too many people yelling at their TVs and far too few actually changing what they see on the other side of the screen. If you really cared about gaming, you would fight to protect it instead of claiming victimhood to warrant sympathy. If we could all put down our collective pitchforks and pick up controllers, we could usher our generation into a new era of gaming, and we could turn our attention to the real enemies, instead of all this bullshit infighting. This video is my statement of intent. Now it's up to you.